We used to kill koalas, and we have changed, as very recent press photos demonstrate. Anne Moyle is a historian of Australian science, and her new book is about the creature of the moment.
Did you see the recent Victorian bushfire pictures of a koala drinking from a mineral water bottle? This is our flagship animal in this most flammable of continents. While specimens of the platypus had reached England by 1799, it took 14 years after settlement before the koala, tucked away out of sight from British eyes in the high branches of the eucalyptus trees, was discovered near the Nepean River by Francis Barralier, an ensign in the New South Wales Corps, aided by Aborigines. Its description was posted in the Sydney Gazette in August 1803. As, however, there was no specimen to dispatch to London, Governor King commissioned the natural history artist John Lewin to paint a watercolour of a female koala with young on her back, which was sent with a description to Sir Joseph Banks. Art, in fact, was to play a singular role in the koala's history. Lewin's depictions flowed into many European publications, but it also fell to that superlative early 19th century illustrator, Ferdinand Bauer, in Australia with botanist Robert Brown, aboard Matthew Flinders' Investigator, to portray the live koala in anatomically scientific and artistically compelling form. When Flinders left Sydney in 1803 to seek a more seaworthy vessel, Brown and Bauer chose to remain behind to carry out further research, and in August that year, 2 koalas captured in the Illawarra district were brought into Sydney and given to the scientific gentleman. There, Bauer drew a number of live sketches of the animal and its anatomical parts, all transformed through his detailed colour coding into beautiful and exact watercolours on his return to London. Working beside him, Robert Brown, also trained as a zoologist, wrote a long description of the koala in Latin, yielding up in this remote colony the same ancient language he would use later for his famous botanical work, and creating the first scientific type record of this unique Australian animal. But neither Bauer's illustrations nor Brown's scripts were published in their lifetime. Bauer's watercolours waited until the late 20th century to be publicly revealed, and Brown's manuscript, found among his papers in the British Museum of Natural History, is published in this book for the first time. They remain, however, an important part of the koala's biography. The first knowledge of the koala in Britain evoked both amazement and distaste. When at last the koala appeared in the scientific literature in 1810 in George Perry's journal Arcana, it was represented as an arboreal bear-like animal, a New Holland sloth, and it attracted Perry's particular disdain. This animal, he wrote snappishly, has received its name from the sluggishness and inactivity of its character. Its facial appearance is clumsy and void of elegance, and its body awkward and unwieldy. Indeed, for Perry, the koala posed a larger question. Among the numerous and curious tribes of animals which the hitherto almost undiscovered regions of New Holland have opened to our view, he wrote, the creature stands singularly preeminent, and we are at a loss to imagine for what particular scale of usefulness or happiness such an animal could, by the great author of nature, possibly be destined. But, he added, as nature provides nothing in vain, we may suppose that even these torpid, senseless creatures are wisely intended to fill up one of the great links of the chain of animated nature. In the competitive world of international science, it fell to naturalists across the Channel to take the lead. In 1816, the French zoologist Henri de Blainville introduced a new genus and a new generic specific for the koala from the Greek paskolas, meaning leather bag, hence pouch, and arctos, meaning bear. Blainville also named the animal koala after the Aboriginal name Colac. George Cuvier described and drew a curiously elongated four-legged koala, but thought it aligned to the wombat. Other Europeans tried their hand at different nomenclatures, and it was not until 1846 that the animal found its place in the hierarchy of mammals in Waterhouse's Natural History of Mammalia as Plascolatus cinereus, a distinct fauna among the marsupia, separate from the wombat. It was the British comparative anatomist, Richard Owen, who got his hands on a specimen preserved in spirits and identified the singular internal feature of the koala's anatomy, the caecum, or outer stomach, an organ, as he described it, of enormous magnitude, some 4 feet in length, which enabled the koala, through ceaseless munching and digestion of its special low nutrition eucalyptus leaves, to live and survive. The Aboriginals, as usual, knew a great deal about the animal and its anatomy, for they ate parts of its body, and they incorporated the vast extending caecum into their creation stories. But as scientific understanding of the animal grew in its slow patchwork in Britain and Europe, worse things were happening in Australia. Observing naturalists were quick to note the appealing nature of the animal, the peculiar, droll-looking physiognomy of this little beast, said Dr. George Bennett. And how can one help making them human, these solemn-faced, innocent eyes, little fellow? Asked Charles Barrett, noting the harmless, vulnerable nature of this gentle animal. It was, however, the hunters, sportsmen, timber cutters and trappers who came in the latter half of the 19th century to threaten the koala's world. By 1894, a mammologist at the British Museum reported that 10,000 koala skins were being imported annually into London. In 1902, some 600,000 skins were recorded as purchased in New South Wales alone. And in 1924, more than 2 million koala pelts were estimated to have left Australia. Queensland became the worst offender, and no fewer than 1 million koalas were slaughtered there in 1919. At last, the 1927 massacre of the koalas in Queensland finally involved concerned citizens and the press. Legislatures had given scant protection to the koala, and neither scientists nor the community saw the need for this harmless animal's care. It was a work of Australian literature that was to transform the koala's fate and to shape it as the country's most popular faunal icon. It was Norman Lindsay, cartoonist, painter of voluptuous women and writer, who, in his early cartoon work for the Bulletin, took the koala to heart and presented it as a raffish larrikin figure dressed in Western garb, which he called Billy Bluegum, and which served as a vehicle of social satire. Addicted to the animal, which he found very easy to draw, Lindsay published The Magic Pudding in 1918 and brought its principal character, Bunyip Bluegum, to the attention and love of countless Australian children and adults. Some 15,000 copies were printed for the small Australian population that year, and the book has never since been out of print. Not only did it present its leading figure, that fine, round, splendid fellow, Bunyip Bluegum, and his companions Bill Barnacle, Sam Sornoff, and Albert, the raucous little puddin', to a vast readership, his engaging story, with its brilliant illustrations, enshrined all the values of comradeship, egalitarianism and justice for the underdog, and portrayed a timeless glimpse of the Australian national character, with the native bear to reflect the best of it. The Magic Pudding's influence was critical in helping to halt the large-scale killing of koalas for their fur, while the charm of the animal steadily penetrated the national psyche. Koala sanctuaries sprang up in various regions from 1929. International visitors and Australians flocked to see them and to indulge a deepening love affair with the animal, so that in these last decades the koala has added some $1 billion a year to our national economy. Despite its charm, however, it must be confessed that the koala has the smallest brain in the mammal kingdom. But with its slow lifestyle, its relentless munching, and its extraordinary chiasm that detoxifies the eucalyptus leaves and allows it slowly to digest its diet, it has survived through several ice ages and vast climatic change over 35 million years. Descended from a group of immense extinct herbivore browsers, the Diprotodonta, the koala appears to have established its smaller form some 35 or more million years ago, and paleontologists maintain that the living koala is little more specialised than its ancestors and has not edged far along the evolutionary limb, but it has been an adroit survivor. Yet the question now arises, what are the chances of its further survival in our increasingly urbanised and climatically threatened land? How much, as the saying goes, can the koala bear? Wildlife policies lie with the states. The animal is now listed as vulnerable in New South Wales and Queensland's southern region, rare in South Australia, highly vulnerable in parts of Victoria, and overabundant on Kangaroo Island. There are only fossil relics of the koala in Western Australia, and koalas never got to Tasmania. There has been a long historic process of transporting koalas from well-populated areas to fill niches elsewhere, but the spread of urban settlement and the land clearing begun in the 19th century and accelerating into the 21st has had great impact on koala habitat. It is only in recent years that koala management problems have been seriously addressed in the States, and policies there are based on overall animal populations and long time frames. This has brought science managers into open conflict with the Australian Koala Foundation, established as an independent organisation in 1986, and which prizes the life and safety of individual and scattered groups of koalas. The foundation has carefully mapped and recorded koala populations and scattered habitat for general conservation use, which is now a valuable asset in plans for fire management, and it sees a real threat of koala extinction. Indeed, despite its woolly roundness, the koala lives near the edge, low in fat reserves, unable to go without food for more than 24 hours, highly susceptible to heat waves, drought, overbrowsing and disease and any stress that reduces its immune system. It also lives in the most flammable of continents. What strategies then are on offer? Deficiencies in protection policies are being assessed, but essentially key researchers argue that we have to develop a new holistic approach to the perils facing this flagship animal, a revolutionary approach that will give a balance to human needs and urban development, but take account of local desires to manage koala habitat requirements. We need, in effect, to adopt the maxim of Australia's earliest sanctuary, Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary in Queensland, that the earth is not only for humans.
It's also for thirsty koalas. Anne Moyle's book Koala is from CSIRO Publishing.